Hello and welcome to Backyard Food Guide. Worms are incredibly healthy for your garden, and what I'd like to do today is to give you a few tips on how to attract them into your garden beds. Worms do a great job of aerating the soil. They're considered nature's plow, and that aeration makes it easier for your vegetable plants to establish deeper roots, creating healthier vegetable plants. So in terms of the life cycle of the worm, the adults usually die by the end of summer and the young ones hatch in the fall. So over winter, they'll burrow pretty deep beneath the soil, and in fact some species will even overwinter their eggs to be hatched in the spring. After last frost, the earthworms will begin to move up the soil and looking for mates and just being more active. So the kinds of tunnels that they're digging throughout your garden beds do a great job of not only aerating and loosening the soil, but allowing water to percolate deep into the soil so that rather than running off the surface, you're actually getting moisture deep into your soil. The earthworms can process a lot of soil, so in fact they can eat 2 tons of dry matter per acre in a year. So they digest and mixed with the soil to form their castings. And some worms can also eat harmful nematodes that aren't good for plants. And a worm's gut contains many different types of microorganisms, which can have 8 times the amount of nutrients that went into the worms. So they do a great job of providing a rich soil environment. Also, their castings have humic acid, and that can help control plant pathogens. They also have a neutral pH, and other nutrients can come from their castings. So that would include nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, iron, magnesium, and sulfur in a soluble form that plants can easily use. So in fact, an earthworm can produce its own weight in castings per day. So in the spring, one of the things that you could do is to test how healthy your soil is. And to do that, if you dig approximately a square foot of soil, maybe about 6 or 7 inches deep, and put the soil on a tarp, loosen it up, and count how many earthworms are there. So if you have more than 10 worms, then you have a healthy population. And if you have less than that, then it might be a good idea to take a look at your soil and see if there's anything that you can do to make it better. So often no worms could signal poor conditions with your soil. So your soil can either be too dry or too wet, or if there are any kinds of toxic substances in your soil, like pesticides, that will chase away the worms as well. If your soil is too sandy, or if there simply isn't enough organic matter for them to eat, then they're going to leave. So one of the things that you're going to want to do to attract worms is to make sure you're not over-tilling your soil, and you want to make sure there's organic matter on the surface and within the top couple of layers. So adding compost will be really helpful so that they have a food source. And as I'd mentioned, again, I want to emphasize, try not to use chemicals in your organic gardens. And then also to use an organic mulch, and that will help to keep the soil moist and cool for the worms. And making sure that you have the right soil environment is very important. Some people are tempted just to buy worms and add them to their garden beds, but that doesn't really work, because if the environment isn't right, they're simply going to leave. Also, in terms of the anatomy of the worms, they are about 80% water, so they do need to have a good amount of moisture in the soil. However, too much water can drown them because they actually breathe through their own skin. They also prefer a relatively loamy soil, and if it's too sandy, it can be too abrasive for them. And also, sandy soil will dry out too quickly as well. You can check the pH of your soil. They prefer a neutral pH around 7, but earthworms can also be relatively tolerant. A pH between 5 to 8 can be a good environment for them as well. So hopefully you've gained some good tips on how to attract earthworms to your garden. Please give us a like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.